how do I avoid getting broke or worse with a big pair?
That's a very good question, okay? So, Stu Unger, you guys heard of Stu Unger? Many, many years ago, Stu Unger talked about like pocket aces, especially in the early stages, as a hand you'll win a lot of small pots with and lose a lot of big ones. And this is kind of true, right? Later in the tournament, when people are shorter, aces are just gold, right? But in the first couple levels, you raise with aces, 3 people call, 4 people call. This isn't a great situation. I mean, you're going to still win a good percentage of the time. The problem is when you do get beat, if you marry those aces and can't get rid of them, you're going to lose a lot of big pots. So, for example, okay, let's just take a hand. Let's say you're under the gun, you get pocket aces. Yeah, right? Goes call, small blind calls, big blind calls. So 5 people on the flop. Flop is 10-8-7, 2 hearts. You like this flop? Anyone like this flop? Really? Okay, you shouldn't, okay? So that's a dangerous flop because a lot of people that call, what kind of hands are they going to call with? The 10 jack suited, 10 nines, pocket 8s, pocket 7s. On top of that, a board like this, if a heart comes, that's dangerous. If a 9 comes, really dangerous. A jack, a 6. So you can bet this flop, right? And hope and pray that everybody folds. There's nothing wrong with that. Or sometimes you can elect to check and see what develops behind you. What you don't want to do is just, bulldoze your way through. Because unless, of course, the turn comes good. So let's say you bet the flop and now the turn is a deuce. And you've only got one opponent. Now you can bet. But the thing is, if you do get raised, you have to ask yourself, okay, what am I up against here? Seems like this guy has a really strong hand. So just because you have aces doesn't mean you're going to win, especially when there's 4 or 5 players. And my thought process with aces early is don't go broke. But later, it's try to maximize profit. Question? Yeah, go ahead. You're first, and you.
Hi, Dave. Can you give us an example of one of the more difficult decisions you had to make a hand in the past 12 months yourself?
Oh, I can give you a bunch. Yeah. I'll give you one. So yesterday, there's so many, so I'll just go with one that was kind of interesting yesterday. It's a little bit advanced-ish, but I'll try to make it as simple as possible. I'm playing in the super high roller, the $100,000 buy-in, and when you're playing in this tournament, you're playing with a bunch of tough cookies, okay? They're all really tough. So my strategy in a tournament like that is different than it would be in the main event, okay? I take more risks just for the same reason I told you. If you're an amateur against a bunch of pros, you take more risks. Well, if I'm against a bunch of amateurs, I don't take many risks. If I'm up against a bunch of pros myself, I do the same thing. So I happen to be in a hand against David Peters. You heard of that name? He was the player of the year last year. So that means he's good. Okay? We've played a lot in the past. He knows I don't do really dumb things. If I bet all my chips on the end, he knows Daniel's got it. So the hand came out like this. I was on the button, and I had Jack 10. I raised. The blinds were, I made it 12,000, so the blinds were 2,500, 5,000. He defended from the big blind, as I mentioned, most of these pros will do, and I expect them to. And the flop came 8-6-3 with 2 spades. He checked, and there's a couple ways to go here. The standard play, really, just bet. Hope that, he folds and he doesn't have anything. Other ways to just check and give up and figure out, I'm not going to mess with it. I decided to bet 15,000. He calls. The turn is a 7, so now there's 8-7-6-3. He checks, and I felt like I didn't think he had a very good hand on flop, just the way that he called. I was trying to read his body language and just didn't seem very strong. So I decided I'm going to represent something here. I also have a hand where I can catch a 9 to make the nuts, or a 10 or a jack, which would make a pair and is probably pretty good. So I decided to go ahead and bluff him off of what maybe if he had ace high or a small pair of 3s or something. So I bet 35,000. Okay? Now he calls again. So I'm thinking, all right, he must be on some kind of a draw, maybe a pair to straight draw, maybe a flush draw. The river's a king. He checks. I have 110,000 left, and I figure, okay, based on my history with him, the only way he could call me, the only way, is if he has the nuts. He can't have the nuts, though, right? He didn't check raise me. He didn't bet. He just checked, called, checked, called. So I go all in. He called faster than I bet with the nuts. So actually, it's interesting because this hand is something that I asked myself, because I obviously went broke with the hand. I asked myself, did I make a mistake here, right? And if we look at the result, it looks like, yeah, that's clearly a mistake. Then I talked, and this is one way to get better at poker, is to talk to your peers and other players who are good. And I asked them about the bluff, and they all thought, very good bluff. And they went into some very high-end reasonings, blockers. Oh, you had a 10, you didn't have any spades. All this stuff that the young kids today think about. But overall, I don't focus on the result. Long term, if I make that bluff, it's going to work. But it was still a difficult decision to decide because, anytime you risk your chips, and if the guy calls, you just go, uh-oh. That's not good. All right, next question. Oh, I think it was one up here. Mm-hmm. So if I had 5 minutes before or 5 minutes? 20
minutes about it.
Oh, okay, got it. So he wanted the condensed version of how to mentally prepare for playing a tournament. So a lot of you that are playing today, for those of you that are playing tomorrow, I hope that you got good sleep. Because there's probably nothing more important than sleep when it comes to these things. And it's because, first of all, you're going to be playing really long days for 5 days. And all it takes is 1.5 hour of fatigue and making a brain fart and going, oops, what the heck did I just do? So don't neglect sleep. Also, I'd say this, right? Be clear on what it is you want to accomplish. Who's playing day 1A? Anyone? Okay, so you're playing day 1A. What do you want to happen in this tournament? So you just want to see day 3. So that's your intention, that's your goal. Okay, so you're clear. So your intention is not win or have a good time. It's basically day 3 is your thing. So now all the decisions you make are going to be based on that. Here's a tip. Don't tell anyone on your table that. Because if they know that, they're going to push you around. But what I mean is, so when I intentionalize for this tournament, my goal is to win it. So I look back at all the decisions I make leading up to it in terms of preparation and ask myself, is this in line with winning? Is being at the bar till 7 a.m. in line with what I say that I want to do? Is that going to help me? Don't think so, right? Getting good sleep, eating a decent breakfast, and really understanding one thing. You're human, right? Your level of focus, it's very difficult to focus for 12 hours a day, 5 straight days. So there's going to be times where your mind wanders, and that's okay. You can check out here and there, go into autopilot a little bit. But later, because you need to save that energy for if you do make it deep and they're down to 3 tables, you need every bit of mental strength that you got. So sometimes it's okay to glide a little bit on day 1 early and just kind of go through the motions and, not over-exercise your mind. You don't need to be staring at everybody like this the whole time. Oh, it's a lot of these kids do. It's a little annoying. All right.